Copernican revolution, scientific discoveries dealt a fatal blow to the spiritual worldview. By demonstrating that the Earth was not the center of the universe, the cosmological model of creation described in Genesis was debunked as a literal, materialistic explanation for our origins. Since that time, science has all but eroded the religious worldview. We have adopted a completely different, all-encompassing theory about reality, asserting that the universe is a mix of matter and energy. The newfound material perspective interprets reality by asking, how does it work, and what is it made of? Because it perceives no higher reason for existence. The universe is a massive, mechanical machine, an observable and discoverable chain of reactions between atoms, and we are simply the result of that chain, our consciousness merely chemical reactions, and our free will nothing more than an illusion. This is our modern mythology. It is the story we tell ourselves, and the reality we imagine we live in. And over the centuries, this mythology has so thoroughly overcome us that our societies now consist of machine-like educational, economic, and medical systems. Our communities are almost non-existent, and our institutions are amoral at best and pathological at worst. This spirit has intoxicated us, and we are drunk with its power. We think, if something cannot be explained now, surely science will explain it sometime down the road. And this only fuels our desire to push scientific discovery along at an even faster rate, in the hopes that sometime down the road is tomorrow. There is no room for mystery, and there is nothing beyond the reach of scientific progress. Yet, it is still obvious to us that some essential ingredient is lacking. By centering our attention on science, we seem to have developed a blind spot in the realm of meaning. Although we know how the world around us works, we are at a loss for how to act in that world. Nihilism remains with us at all times, a quiet desperation that forms the underbelly of our civilization. Science can offer no solution to suffering, death, or the existence of evil. Pharmaceuticals cannot cure it, and the more we attempt to solve the problem scientifically, the worse we make it, and the more cynical we become. With this in mind, perhaps a different cognitive framework is necessary to gain wisdom about the meaning of life. By turning to older stories, under whose guidance civilization invented science in the first place, we can come to a greater understanding of the meaning of our own consciousness. Given our current scientific framework, it would be naive to interpret the Bible through our modern materialistic paradigms. Instead of interpreting Genesis through the lens of science, trying to figure out what literally happened and if the story is true or not, it might be more useful to read the story through the lens it was written, meaning. The pre-scientific spiritual worldview saw reality as the physical expression of metaphysical truth. Therefore, when listening to the stories, ask yourself, what does this mean, and what truth is it conveying? Paraphrasing from the story in Genesis 2:3, we read, God said to Adam, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for you will die on the day you eat of it. They ate its fruit, and their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves girdles. God exiled the human from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. The story of Adam and Eve begins in a childlike state where all is well in reality. But eating the apple facilitated a change that allowed them to perceive new possibilities beyond the limits of their old consciousness. Their eyes were open to a strange new world without clear spiritual meaning. Lost and confused, they knew that they were naked and that their old spiritual truth was an illusion to which they could not return. Instead, they had to work and suffer in search of a way to obtain meaning and purpose once again. Interpreted through the lens of meaning, this story perfectly encapsulates the plight of humanity since the scientific revolution. Although the material lens has afforded to us many conveniences and made us powerful beyond belief, the knowledge did not come without a price, and in this case, perhaps the expense was spiritual exile, banishment from a medieval Garden of Eden, where innocence provided the illusion of purpose. In this way, the story of Adam and Eve lays the foundation for the meta-narrative about human consciousness, and the rest of the biblical stories are about our conflicted attempts to reconcile spiritual truth with an always changing physical reality, in the hopes of acquiring divine knowledge, that is, the knowledge of God and the meaning of life. It reveals to us a cosmic pattern about reality. We begin in a position where we understand our spiritual purpose in creation. But the force of time brings about a change, be it the death of a parent, the loss of a job, or the all too realization of our own mortality, and that change leaves us spiritually naked and exposed. Despite changes in material reality around us, the framework for human consciousness remains. We can construct skyscrapers or live in caves, but we will always perceive reality as an experience measured by meaning, with our hearts turned upward, searching for that higher meaning. And we will never escape the fact that we are subject to the forces of time and the passions of animals, inhabiting a harsh, transient material reality consisting primarily of shape-shifting atoms, atoms that will soon no longer make us, us. Although science may imagine itself as a mighty sword, rising up to put God to death once and for all, in constructing for mankind a reality more pleasurable than God himself could have drawn up, it has ironically only proved the significance of the Bible on a higher metacognitive level, one which symbolically describes the position our civilization finds itself in today. As long as Genesis is interpreted on that level, it will continue to transcend any amount of change in material reality. Diving into this ancient, mystical book will be like learning a new language, one which interprets reality according to its higher meaning. It will act as a perceptual lens, like a pair of glasses that allow us to perceive a colorful, vibrant reality, an interconnected reality full of purpose, one that ultimately connects us to God and the cosmic significance of our own consciousness. This lens should not conflict with science, since it perceives a different aspect of reality beyond the reach of science. Ultimately, using both frameworks together, with each in their proper place, can help us understand how the word technically works, as well as what its higher purpose and meaning is. In order to adopt this lens, we must redefine terms according to their spiritual significance, not our modern scientific perspective. For example, when reading the Bible, we must use a definition of water not related to its chemical composition of H2O, but rather as a chaotic medium, which illustrates the transient and cyclical nature of life, something which in its proper place renews and refreshes us, but in excess floods our world. Light should not be associated with the interactions between photons in the air, but rather a higher spiritual principle that illuminates our consciousness and provides meaning for the human experience. Earth cannot simply mean one of several planets in the Milky Way that we inhabit, but rather raw material, not yet infused with meaning, which constitutes the basis of all things in corporeal reality. And heaven should not be interpreted as a place in the atmosphere that outstanding individuals will inhabit upon departure from this life, but rather the upper spiritual half of the cosmos, an invisible realm full of meaning, which covers the earth with purpose. These definitions will be elaborated on in the following videos, as a series of cosmic patterns are revealed through a close reading of Genesis.